How did this guy go from being this to being this, the most notorious criminal of his age at this time, with the longest serving sentence given to a boy of this age all over Britain? So the story goes back in 2019, and this guy's name is Axel Rudakubanga. In 2019, a 13-year-old in a village in Merseyside, England, will call the child welfare, and in his words he will ask this question: what will I do if I want to unalive somebody? So the story goes as far as 2019, when this boy was just 13 years old. You see, his parents came from Rwanda and settled in UK after experiencing the Rwandan genocide, and they gave birth to this boy right there in Wales in UK, of which this boy grew up. And at the tender age of 13, he started exhibiting some very dark tendencies. So Axel was in school, and Axel started showing some form of aggression. He would have altercations with teachers and students in class, and eventually was found with a knife in his bag, all of which compounded, and the school decided to expel him. Axel got expelled from school, and after being expelled from school, 2 months later he showed up back with a hockey stick and pounced on a student, eventually leading to the student to break his wrists. This thing made the police to take him in, and he had to go to rehab, of which he completed the rehab in 2021. This was just one out of many scenarios of which Axel will exhibit his violent tendencies, and all these things will lead up to many more chain of events that will lead Axel into getting life sentence of 52 years imprisonment. So eventually Axel was taken to a new school, and in this new school the same thing continued to happen. His teacher first found him in their IT class looking at scenes from the gory incidents that happened in the US that involved mass unaliving. You see, Axel was obsessed with the dark side of the world. This made the teacher to call Prevent, the anti-terrorist squad in the UK, and Prevent came in and interrogated Axel. This would be the only time Prevent will interrogate Axel in person. After this, there were still many other reports of Axel to Prevent, the anti-terrorist squads in Britain, and the anti-terrorist squad will not do anything. The first one was by a fellow former student who saw Axel putting up a post on Instagram about the late president of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi. So he saw the post, and the post looked suspicious, so he called Prevent. Another situation where Prevent was called was when a teacher still caught Axel watching some scenes from the London event. So these were 3 calls to the anti-terrorist squad in the UK, of which only 1 call resulted to a one-on-one interrogation with Axel. His aggressive tendencies resulted in him being diagnosed of autism, according to one of the reports, but it was sure that he was registered to a mental facility, as he was obliged to go through rehab up until 2023, where he stopped going to that rehab. You see, Axel's case was a lot severe than many people thought, and because he was underage, he was easily overlooked by the police and many other bodies that were called in a situation. During the lockdown, his case worsened. Axel was now at home and had a lot of free time in his hands, so he delved on the dark web and continued watching those dark and very sad events. He was watching these events and became obsessed with it, that he even downloaded a manual from a very popular terrorist group. This manual was one of the things that furthered Axel's agenda, as he used the manual to learn a lot of things. You see, Axel knew what he was doing. He ordered some material from Amazon, which included castor beans, goggles and flax, things that you use in a lab, and he took all these things and used them to make ricin, a poisonous substance, and kept it under his bed. Many more reports of Axel's actions were sent to the police. One of them was when his mom called the police because Axel had left the house without her knowing where Axel was. He was later seen entering a bus with a weapon, of course a knife, and not having transport fare. When the local police caught him and interrogated him about it, he simply said that he wanted to use the knife and put it through someone, so that the police would be able to delete some of his videos that he has online, of which he doesn't want to be there anymore. I still can't wrap my head around that, because how was he sure that the police will do this if he took this drastic action? The guy was clearly mentally unstable and didn't deserve to be free. The police, instead of taking him and locking him up in prison because he was underage, they took him home and they told his parents that they should simply keep the knives away from him. Imagine the police being that nonchalant. If it was Nigeria, we'll blame the Nigerian police for their unproactiveness to situations like this. But this is the UK police and they were guilty of the same thing. Other situations to which Axel was reported was when his dad seized his laptop and Axel reacted. Of course, the laptop was one of his major tools to fuel his evil agendas and his thoughts. He reacted very violently and they had to call the police, and the police came there, and instead of them taking Axel in, they advised his parents that they should take Axel to a local program. I think they called it the Safe Boarding Facility. So eventually in July of 2024, Axel struck. You see, there were 26 little girls and their instructor in a dance studio, and Axel saw this place and he felt this was the place he could act. Firstly, there were no men there, and there was nobody that was going to be a threat to him because these were little kids and just their instructor. So Axel took a cab. I don't know, there were no details of how he targeted these people, but Axel took a cab and he went straight down to that studio, and Axel went with a knife in his hand and he went there, and the worst happened. This scenario is one of the saddest incidents in British recent history, because an 18-year-old boy who was 17 years old at the time, just a couple days before he turned 18, struck, and he went into that place, carried a knife, and this resulted to the worst, eventually resulting to the unaliving of 3 little girls and several people injured. This is a sad story, and it is one that will be remembered in all British history.